Okay, so the topic which we have, it is the new lesson, which is peripheral nervous system. Yesterday we did central nervous system. Sultan, tell us, central nervous system is made from what? Brain and spinal cord. So both of these we took in a very detail. Its part, its subparts, its functions. Right now, the next, the nervous system is divided into two types. Right, as we know, central nervous system finished. Now we have peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system, as I told you, that central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, rest of the body is rest of the nerves which is present in the body, that is called, that are the part of peripheral nervous system. A computer is worthless if it cannot accept input from the world around it and output a result. If you have a computer and it do not accept input from the world and it didn't give you the result, so it is useless. So same we have is in the nervous system. If it didn't receive messages and didn't respond, so it's useless. Now a question, right? Let's suppose we are saying that nervous system will working all the time. It will work all the time or it will take rest. All the time. Who said it will take rest? Nervous system will take rest or it will work all the time? All the time. The brain, even in sleep. Even in your sleep. So let's suppose you know thief does not take thief. Yes, when a thief is going to steal something from you, what your nervous system is doing at that time? It's laughing. Oh, it's laughing. The nervous system. Yes, let's suppose. What's stupid? Search this answer, right? Then it clear to me. I don't know even that what actually happened at that time. The six. I don't know. Search it, then tell me. So if you get the answer, also share with me. Okay. First point, which we are going to study in this lesson, there is what? 2 points we are going to study: the sensory division and the motor division. Two division we have in the peripheral nervous system. The sensory division, the first one we have, and the next one we have the motor division. So both of them, inshallah, we can finish it today. How does the central nervous system receive sensory information? The sensory division, which can sense and which can capture, which can take the information. So how it's going to take these information? The sensory division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from sense organ to the central nervous system, right? How it's going to transmit? How it's going to capture? This what? This is nervous system. It receives message and it responds. It receives message and it responds. So the receiving a message, like when I, for example, this. So what he did? He responded. So his eye received the signal. His eyes receive the signal. So this is what? Eye is a receiver, or you can say it is a sensor, right? Like for example, skin. Most of the times in touch we have skin as a sensor. Right? In taste we have tongue as a sensor. In listening we have ear, right? And looking, seeing, sight, right? Eye we have. So these are what? These are sensor. Sensory division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from sense organ to the central nervous system, right? So sense organ, we have how many sense organ? Five sense organ we have, right? Touch, taste, smell, sight, and listening. Five. So touch, skin, smell, right? Two. Next we have taste, tongue, right? And even the nose have also some taste. Okay. Then we have the fourth one we have hearing, right? And fifth one we have sight, seeing, vision. All right. So these five we have. And when these five senses take messages or sense any message, sense any stimulus, it will be given to central nervous system, right? The peripheral nervous system consists of all nerve and associated cell that are not a part of the brain and spinal cord. Now, if you are talking about the peripheral nervous system, so peripheral nervous system is made up of what? Peripheral nervous system is made up of all nerves and associated cell, right? Which is not a part of brain or a spinal cord. Beside, except brain and spinal cord, rest of all cells, all nerves, that will be what? That will be the part of peripheral nervous system. Cranial nerves, now one by one, not all, but some of them we have to study, right? As an example, first we have cranial nerves. Cranial nerves go through opening in the skull and stimulate region of the head and neck region. Cranial nerves, those nerves which is working above this area, right? Above the clavicle. This is clavicle, right? So above the clavicle, which is working, there is what? That is cranial nerves. So it will work in the neck area, it will work in the skull area. So skull start from here till this place, it's skull, right? So in the skull and in the neck region, which nerves will work? Cranial nerves will work. Or if someone asks you, what are cranial nerves? So cranial nerves are those nerves of the peripheral nervous system which respond or which work in the head region and neck region, in the skull region and in the neck region. Spinal nerves stimulate the rest of the body, while the spinal nerves, so it means that nerves are divided into, the nerves of the peripheral nervous system are divided into two main categories: cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Cranial nerves in the neck and head region, while the spinal nerve, rest of the body, right? Then further it is divided the spinal nerves and even cranial nerves, right? Even every nerve has its own names. Like for example, nerves in the ear, nerve in the nose, nerve which is responsible for hearing sensation. For each and everything which are nerve, it has its own name. But mainly it is divided into two, which is cranial and spinal. So spinal below the neck, and cranial neck and skull. The cell body of cranial and spinal nerves are arranged in a cluster called ganglia. So when these cells, right, when the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves, when they arrange in a cluster formation, like cluster-like shape, right? When they come close in a group shape, so that we call ganglia, right? We called it what? We called it ganglia. The peripheral nervous system consists of two major divisions: the sensory division and the motor division, right? It is divided how many division? Into two division. One we have sensory division and other we have motor division. Now the sensory division, as I told you, it is the sensing part, right? The sensory division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from sense organ to the central nervous system, right? From sense organ to the central nervous system. So sense organ, I told you, we have 5 sense organ in our body, right? The motor division, now the function of motor division. The motor division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from central nervous system to the muscle of the glands. You look to the peripheral nervous system, to the motor division. So the motor division or the motor division of the peripheral nervous system, it will do what? It will transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the muscle and glands. Right? Very well. Very well. Okay. Who can explain this phenomenon in the terms of sensory division and motor division? Yes, Kahan. I asked him where you were. He responded. I was in the bathroom. Explain it in the terms of sensory division and motor division. Who can explain?
So basically, the sensory division is the feedback mechanism that takes the action, then processes it to the central nervous system. Then the motor division is the response to which you reply to that action.
So you can explain the example. I asked him, will you work? He responded?
Yeah, he took the question from me, the sensory division.
Yes.
Then when he said about that's the motor division.
Yes. When I asked him, to me, his mind, which sense? His ear senses, right? It receives the signal and then give it to the brain. So brain is a part of what? It's a part of nervous system, central nervous system, right? So first, the sensory division. Here, take the message and give it to the brain. This is sensory division, right? The brain responds by there nervous, so he responds, he gives the answer. So that is what? That is motor division. Sensory receptors are cells that transmit information about changes in the internal and external environment. These changes are called stimuli, right? If there are any changes, right? If there are any changes in the environment, these will call what? These will call stimuli, right? Turn on the light.
So it's little enough.
Huh? Close the light. Okay. Now, when I turn on the light, right? So what happened? The external environment has been changed. The external environment has been changed, and you were sleeping, right? Yeah. So you feel disturbed. Right? Because of what? Because he gets stimulus. His nervous system is stimulated. Then now it's not a good time to sleep. Like, right? Teacher can detect, someone from outside can detect. So that is what? That is stimulus. Any change in the environment will is detected by the cells of the nervous system. That is called stimulus. Sensory receptors are categorized by the type of the stimulus to which they respond, right? So it is categorized. Sensory receptor, right? In our body we have a lot of receptors. It is categorized, you can see here on page number 906 you have types respond to types respond to in some locations, right? If you look here, the types are given. If you look to the name, chemoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptor, and pain receptors, right? So these are the six or five different type of receptors. Besides this, we have also other receptors. So chemoreceptor, if you look to the name, chemoreceptor, it is derived from the chemicals, right? So derived from the chemicals. Location, it will occur in the mouth, in the nose, in the blood vessel, in the digestive system, right? In the stomach, in many places in the body. Photoreceptor, light, eyes. As I turn on the light, so that was what? That was light receptor. Mechanoreceptor, touch, pressure, vibration, or stress. Like if you touch any surface, right? Or someone's left. So that is what? That is pressure. That is mechanical receptor. So it will be skin, hair, follicle, ear, ligaments, or tendons. You are sitting, right? So if you are sitting in a compartment position, so your tendons and ligaments is in a relaxed position. But if you are sitting stretched, so that is what? That will also be counted in the mechanical receptor. We have thermoreceptor. Temperature change, thermo means temperature, right? Heat. That is called what? That is called thermo. And it will be stimulated by what? It will be detected by which part? It will be detected by skin, and another part which we have, it will be detected by what? It will be detected by the thalamus. Oh, sorry, hypothalamus. It will be detected by what? It will be detected by the hypothalamus. The next one we are having, it's pain receptor. So pain receptor, right? It will respond to what? It will respond to tissue or injury, and about the location, so it will be throughout the body. So pain receptor will be present throughout the body, right? In any part of the body, so it can respond to injury. If it is inside the body, or if it is the skin of the body, right? Once just the superficial skin, the cells, which you can see the surface cell of the body, right? These surface cells they're not sensing it mostly, right? Most of the dead cell, when the cell dead, so our body bring it upper surface and it becomes upper skin. So sometimes it is slightly the initial, just the superficial skin removed. So sometimes it didn't feel it, right? Because most of the dead cells which come to the surface. Next one, still we are in sensory division. Sensory division, when stimulated, sensory receptor transmit impulses to sensory neurons. Sensory neuron then transmit impulses to the central nervous system. This is finished. For example, walking by flowers will stimulate chemoreceptor and photoreceptor, right? So perfume can do what? Perfume can stimulate the chemoreceptor. Perfume or what? These are chemicals, right? Now the next one we have, it is motor division. How do muscle and glands receive commands from the central nervous system? How do muscle and glands receive commands from the central nervous system? So the motor division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from the central nervous system to muscle or to glands. Right? The motor division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the muscle and to the glands. Mr. Zaim want to call me, but just 1 minute. Okay. So if we look to the motor division, so motor division is the response of what? The response of the central nervous system, right? The motor division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the muscle or gland. If you're eating, right? If you are eating, so during eating, what is required? Two things are required. Yes. Motion is required, movement, and digestive juices are required, right? So the motion will be brought by either mouth muscles, my muscle, right? Either by mouth, teeth, tongue, or either by the what do you can say, stomach, right? By the stomach. But another which will be glands. So what will be the function of glands? Glands will give digestive juices like HCl, pepsin, trypsin, lipase. These things will be given by the glands. Once it has gathered and processed sensory information, the nervous system send command to the rest of the body. So once it has gathered and processed sensory information, the nervous system sends commands to the rest of the body. Like for example, now after 15 minutes, I will tell you that this lesson is finished. So your mind will receive this message, and you will make your leg, you will just sleep. So you are walking, right? So walking is what? You are walking the legs, right? So that is organs motion, right? The motor division of the peripheral nervous system transmit impulses from the central nervous system to the muscle or to the glands. The point we already explained. These messages are relayed through one of the two divisions, the somatic nervous system or the autonomic nervous system, right? So the messages are relayed through a two division. Further, the motor division is divided into two further categories, which is somatic nervous system or autonomic nervous system. If you remember yesterday, I showed you the flow chart, the flow diagram. In it, I show you that the motor division is divided into somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system, or we can say autonomous nervous system. So this is the further two categories. What is the somatic nervous system? The somatic nervous system are going to regulate body activity that are under conscious control, such as the movement of skeleton, right? All those movements of the body, or all those functions of the body, which is under your senses, right? Which is under your thinking, that will be controlled by what? By the somatic nervous system, right? Most of the time, you have control over skeletal muscles movement, but when your body is in danger, the central nervous system may take over, right? So it can be like, let's suppose most of the times you are controlling your all process of the body, right? But when sometimes your body you are feeling and you are in danger, right? So then your central nervous system will take the charge of your body, your senses, right? It will not give control to the somatic nervous system, right? Then it will be run by the central nervous system.
So what you call the emotional senses?
Huh?
Emotional senses.
Yesterday we discussed.
No, when like it comes to you like a memory from past. A memory in your brain that comes.
Yesterday we discussed it. Why you forget it?
And the limbic system.
Yeah. The same yesterday which was there. Now, those action which you can control, these actions are called voluntary action, right? Voluntary movement use motor neurons of the somatic nervous system. So somatic nervous system, the voluntary movements which is under your control, it will do what? It will use motor neurons of the somatic nervous system. Impulses originating in the brain are carried through the spinal cord, where they synapse with the dendrites or the motor neurons. So when the impulses are originating in the brain, right, we are talking in the voluntary controls, right? So when the impulses or the message are going to originate, are going to initiate in the brain, so it will be carried out to the spinal cords, right, where the synapse with the dendrites of the motor neuron will occur, and it will be given to the concerned body part, to a concerned muscle, like to hands, to legs, to tongues, right, which will perform the action. The axon from these motor neurons extend from the spinal cord, carrying impulses directly to the muscles, causing the contraction. They produce voluntary movement. Right? The entire things I have already explained. Reflex arc. Another point which we are going to discuss there is about reflex arc. What is reflex arc? Did you hear before about this reflex arc? Sit straight all. Sit straight. Sit straight.
So this system is
okay. Reflex arc. Although the somatic nervous system is generally considered to be under conscious control, some action of the system occur automatically. As I told you, that the somatic nervous system is voluntary, right? It will be under your control, but sometimes if you feel you are in danger, so then the nervous system are going to take charge over the somatic nervous system, and it will be controlled, or it will be governed with the help of what? With the help of the nervous system. So sometimes it can be automatic, right? It cannot be in your control. For example, if you accidentally step on a thing with your bare, right? With your bare foot, your legs may recoil before you are even aware of the pain, right? So sometimes a position you are, right? Let's suppose on one leg you are standing. So sometimes if our weight is too much, right? And we're consistently doing, so our body will respond automatic, and by itself, it will come to the rest position. The rapid response, a reflex, is caused by the impulse that travel a pathway known as reflex arc. So when there is a rapid action, a quick action, right, or we can say a reflex occur, so that is what? That will occur by a pathway, and we call that pathway a reflex arc. Reflex action is like, how can I blinking of eyes. It's under our control, right? It is under our control. But let's suppose intense light comes direct to our eyes. So it's closed by itself, right? It's closed by itself. So this is what? This is the reflex arc. This is reflex arc. That it closed by. It is under our control, but it closed by itself. That is reflex action or reflex arc. An example of stepping on the attack sensory receptor react to the sensation of the attack and send an impulse to the sensory neurons. So this will happen. You can see what will happen in step 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? In the example of stepping on the tick, sensory receptor react to the sense of the tickle and send an impulse to the sensory neurons. So it will be from where? It will be from the from the sensory organ, which is like skin, right? Or which you can say foot or leg. Sensory neuron relay the information to the spinal cord. So this information will be given to what? To the spinal cord, this part of the body. An interneuron in the spinal cord processes the information and forms the response. Now, if you remember, I told you when we were discussing spinal cord and brain, I told you that most of the function, sit straight all students. I told you that most of the function, it will be controlled by the brain, right? But some function, some response will be given by what? By the spinal cord itself. So this reflex or reflex responses should be given by the spinal cord, right? This message will not go to the brain. It will be returned back from here. So that's why it will be quick, right? If it is going to the brain, it will take time. So it will be quick. It will be given by the spinal cord itself. A motor neurons carry impulses to its effector, a muscle that is stimulated. So when the signals come back from it, right, it will come to the effector area, the signals. And if it is the hand or leg, so it will be removed, or it will come to the rest positions. The muscle contract and your legs move. So you will contract, as I said, that the response will come back here quickly, right? Meanwhile, impulses carry information about the injury are sent to your brain. Now, the same time, if there is injury, so then the information, the message will be sent to what? To the brain. By the time your brain interprets the pains, however, your legs and foot have already moved. So the message which is coming from pain, right, from the brain. So before this, you remove your leg already. The spinal cord does not control all the reflexes. This is important point. The spinal cord is not going to control all the reflexes, right? Many reflexes that involve structure in your head, such as blinking or sneezing, are controlled by your brain. So major reflexes that are controlled by what? That are controlled by the brain. Like for example, sneezing or blinking of eyes. The next one we have autonomic nervous system. The last point which we are going to discuss is autonomic nervous system. How many we have? 2, 3, 4. 3 slides we have. We can finish. Autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system regulates activity that are involuntary or not under the conscious controls. That activities which is not controlled under the conscious level, right? Which is not in your sense, which occur automatic. For instance, when you start to run, the autonomic nervous system speed up your heart rate. The heart rate is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, or we can say autonomous nervous system. And blood flow to the skeletal system. So this is also regulated by the autonomous nervous system. Stimulate the sweat glands and slow down the concentration of smooth muscle in the digestive system. So these all are running with the help of what? Autonomic or autonomous nervous system. You may not be aware of any of these activities, but all of them enable you to run faster and farther. So these activities will help you, right? These are autonomic nervous system. If you are sleeping, so still they will work. The autonomic nervous system consists of 2 parts, right? It is further divided into 2 parts, a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. 2 parts, one is sympathetic nervous system and other is parasympathetic nervous system. In general, the sympathetic and parasympathetic system have opposite effect on each organs they influence. So both of them, they have opposite effect, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. These 2 systems produce a level of control that coordinate organ throughout the body. So they will produce a level of fine controls, mean if one is increasing, so other will decreasing, right? So they will keep the body in a static or in a narrow range, in a hemostatic position. For example, heart rate is increased by the sympathetic nervous system, right? The increase of heart rate will occur by the sympathetic nervous system, but decrease by the parasympathetic nervous system. So one will increase, one will decrease, right? One will increase, let's suppose one will increase it to 75, but if it crosses 75, it is dangerous. So the parasympathetic nervous system will decrease it back to 72. In general, the sympathetic system prepares the body for intense activities. Intense activity means harsh activity, hard activity, right? So sympathetic nervous system will increase it. Its stimulus cause an increase in the blood pressure, the release of energy-rich sugar into the blood, and the shutting down of activities not relating to the body's preparation to fight or flies in response to stress. Clear? Okay. The parasympathetic systems causes what might call the rest and digest response. So if the system, heart rate, blood flow, sugar level, it's go to high level, right? So now it's need to be bring down to the cool level, to the normal level. So it will be brought down by what? By the rest and digest response. So it will occur by the parasympathetic system. It lower heart rate and blood pressures activity, digest and activate pathway that store food molecules in the tissue of the body. So these are the functions which will be occur by the parasympathetic nervous systems, right? This was topic for today. If you have any doubt, any question, you can ask.
Thank you.
You have just 4 or 5 minutes.